Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com.
Today we're going to talk about the inconsistencies in training and how it ultimately is good and bad as far as training goes with your dog. So, Michelle, what are some of the things that you find you're really inconsistent with your dogs, but they work through it?
Oh, man. When they were younger, I felt like I was so consistent about everything, and now I feel like I'm so inconsistent about everything. I mean, my dog's, especially Prudence, she's always been such a routine dog. She keeps us pretty consistent with her stuff. But the other two, they just relax and just go with the flow and stuff like that. I think it's really important to stay consistent when you first start training to teach whatever it is that you're working on. For example, being consistent about putting my dogs in the bathroom every time the doorbell rang. Now they just do that. I don't have to do anything about it. They just go and sit in there. I'm trying to think of anything. Like, I really feel like when they were younger, I was so crazy about being consistent about everything, and now my life is just so chaotic. But they've just worked it out, and they just have learned that the routine of our life is chaotic now.
Well, I think it's a really good point of staying consistent when you start. When you start the journey of dog training, but dogs also need to learn that sometimes things aren't going to happen, or that there is going to be some inconsistencies from maybe the crate time isn't going to be the same one day, but your routine should be the same, even though there's inconsistencies with the routine, if that makes sense. For example, you should prepare and get food ready the same way if you're teaching them to go to a place or get into their crates for feeding, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the same time every day that way. So I think that it's important to train with consistency, but also help them mold into an inconsistent life, because that's kind of how life happens, and we don't want our dogs to get stressed out. Shannon, talk about Louie, and I know he struggles with inconsistencies a little bit. Not in life in general, but there's definitely some routines that he doesn't like to get off.
Well, the biggest thing that stresses him out is strange people or strange dogs coming over, I would say. And the people doesn't stress him out so much at the time, because people tend to usually really like him a lot, and so it's really fun and things like that. But I know that it is stressful, because then after the people leaves, then I will have behavioral problems with him. So it doesn't happen so much while the people are there, because that's exciting and fun, but it's on the edge of like a roller coaster where you have adrenaline and things like that. Yeah. So then after the people go away, then I tend to have problems with him, which is good, because I don't like to have other people have problems with him. Right. Yep. I'd rather have me have the problems. Yep. But if dogs in particular that come over will stress him out. If a dog goes to the bathroom in the yard, and then he goes out in the yard and he never sees the dog, but he knows it's been there, that will stress him out. Yeah. New dogs in the house, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, where I think we see that a lot with the lessons where, people say, well, this is normal, this is normal, this is normal. And then when this happens, then the dog struggles with it. So just like with Michelle, when you've been really consistent about what your expectations are of your dogs when somebody's at the door, it's something that you had to work at and keep into routine so they never questioned it. But, and I guess what I'm getting to is when I came over to your house and you weren't home and they were all out, they just ran to the bathroom, because that was the most consistent thing. Like, this is what we do. I don't know why you're here and what's happening, but we're just going to be in the bathroom. And that's the goal that you want to get to, that when that inconsistent routine or schedule or people or dogs come into your life, that they can find comfort in the consistencies that you've taught them. And when you have behavioral problems after the fact, recognize that there was stuff that was off, that you just need to go back to routines of being consistent and keeping those expectations, instead of thinking that your dog's bad and all the training's gone out the window. Have you had experiences like that with your dogs, as far as when you've had, different things happen that they've been off?
I think Prudence is probably the biggest example. Murphy and Rambo kind of just get back into the routine. Like, you don't notice it as much. Prudence is funny because everybody thinks she's fine because she's the most mellow out of my dogs. But when something upsets her, she gets really sick. And it never dawns on me until she's throwing up, and then I'm like, what happened? But it's really funny because the whole time, whatever that's stressing her out, she seems totally fine. Where the other two, you can tell when they're upset, but they bounce back from it really quickly. Yeah. If we ever, when she was younger, if we ever boarded her or left her at a new person's house, she'd come home and she would be like extremely sick for a few days. But while she was there, everybody said she was great. She was fine. She had the same routine she had at home. She cuddled them. Everything was fine. So hers is a little bit harder because we think she's fine until she's not fine. The other two, really, they just kind of, as long as they're with us, they just kind of bounce back as long as we kind of get back into routines. It happens when we moved. It was very, very stressful for Murphy when we moved. Just having his bed in a different room or whatever. But we just went back to, he wasn't in a crate at night at that time, so we went back to having him in the crate at night and being crated while we were gone and being fed at the same time every day. We went back to really strict routines.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we don't acknowledge about our dogs is that inconsistent things, moving 3 times in a year. You can't stay consistent in any kind of a schedule if you're trying to move and unpack and repack and move again. And so I don't think that we give our dogs enough credit to look and go, why are you acting that way? Why did your behavior change? And that it tends to be the fault of the dog when we get called and that there's a problem. It seems to be the fault of the dog when really it's what's changed. And that's the first thing that we ask in our consultation is what's changed, what's different. Have you changed foods? And some people just don't. Life is so inconsistent that they can't even think about what is so different, that sometimes it takes, a couple of weeks for us to finally figure out what really happened in the household that caused the dog to shift like that so that we could fix it. Shannon, do you find that even, seeing the dogs come into the vet, that sometimes it's not necessarily that they're, truly sick, just kind of like Prudence, but it's that all of a sudden that it's more stress related things that create it?
They have digestive things are a stress reaction in dogs. So throwing up, diarrhea, that kind of stuff. And it can happen. There's lots of things in your life that change that you don't realize. All your kids are home for the summer. Yeah. All the kids go back to school. Yep. You might have a new baby. You might have a friend move into your house and stay with you while they're looking for a place to live. Your elderly parent might move into your house. Your work schedule might change. You might get a new car, and right. All of these things are changes. My personal dog one time had, how he has tantrums. Yeah. He had a tantrum one night because the friends that came over to play at game night sat in different chairs. And you wouldn't think that that would make a difference, but some of the friends are more boisterous, and if the more boisterous friend is closer to areas that the dog thinks are theirs, like their dog bed or their kennel or their toy box, then the dog sees it as like an aggressive, you're taking over my toys, So, I mean, it can be something that small. You sat in a different chair.
Yeah, when you came over, because
you watched a movie at 3:00 in the morning, and you always go to bed at 9. Any kind of thing that it doesn't seem like a big thing to you could potentially
Sure.
be a big thing for the dog.
Sure.
Depending on their mental state.
Yeah.
You moved to a new house and then you watched a movie at 3 a.m.
Right.
And then you went to work and didn't go for a walk.
And now we're going to have diarrhea and
Yeah.
throwing up all over.
Yeah.
And not eat. Michelle, what do you find from a training standpoint, working with clients that that happens a lot and that is a little frustrating?
I guess a lot of people don't think of things through their dog's eyes and how things are different. I don't know if that's really frustrating, though, because that's kind of my job, is just to teach them how to think that way. It is surprising to me how many people don't think things are a big deal, though. I recently had a client that they got a swimming pool in their backyard, and then their dog started fighting, and it didn't even dawn on them till lesson 3 that could be what was doing it. I mean, come on, that's a huge thing that's going on in your life, and that's really frustrating and weird to me that people they don't realize, like, because we're talking about little stuff, right? Like, like Shannon's talking about, like, watching a movie, and Murphy does have a hard time on Fridays and Saturday nights that we're not in bed at 10 o'clock. Like, he will sit at the top of the stairs and, like, pout, and if a TV show ever comes on, he runs upstairs, and then he has to come back downstairs and find us. But it's surprising, I guess. It's not really frustrating. It's just surprising to me that people don't think is a big deal. I imagine it would, like, the stuff that happens shifted their life, so how would they not think it shifted their dog's life?
You had a consultation, and the woman had some medical issues going on, and the husband probably was the most consistent routine-wise, but it was her dog, and we can't train to that, like taking a dog in and training to somebody that wakes up at 2 a.m. or sometimes goes to sleep at 4, or, sleeps during the day and is up at night, but the dog doesn't know when to sleep or how, any of that. And now because everything's so inconsistent, because I don't feel well, now I need you to use this dog door that doesn't really make sense. And I, as a dog trainer, it's hard to be successful in that situation with a puppy to start with. Can you just kind of share a little bit of kind of your thought process with that dog?
I guess that one was a little frustrating. I kind of forgot about that. Just for the fact that, like, I tried to give them solutions that would help them and help her. And they didn't want to hear it because that was not how they wanted the dog to be, which was frustrating to me because I saw the potential in the dog and being a really great dog for that lady, and being her dog, like her being like the fun person and the husband being just the one that made sure that, the dog slept at regular hours. And the breed of dog it was and everything, I really think could have worked out really well for them, but it didn't fit their mold right now. And it was really frustrating because I was like, give me 6 months and I can make this dog what you want it to be. Like, and they didn't want that. They wanted an easy fix. But it wasn't even an easy fix. Like, even the stuff that I suggested that would help them, like trying to figure out a different place to put the dog door. They didn't want to hear it because they didn't want to ruin anything in their house, which I understand, but it's probably something they should have thought about before they got a dog. Right. So that's really frustrating when people aren't willing to even help themselves in the matter.
Yeah, and I think, from our standpoint, because we're teaching people teach their dog or, help their dog be successful, it can be frustrating when people are not willing to recognize and acknowledge and make some changes that make sense for everybody. We're not in it to make people's lives rough, but there's certain things that you can do that makes everybody's life easier, instead of fighting and battling against it. Are there some things, Shannon, that you feel like with the dogs that you will mold to the dogs instead of trying to get the dog to mold to you?
Oh, people molding to their dog?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
A lot of people do that. A lot of people do, oh, we can't do that because of the dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hear it a lot at the vet, too. Oh, well, we can't do that because people that won't go out to the movies, they won't leave their house.
Yeah.
They won't go to lunch with their friends. Oh, we just can't go out because our dog.
Yeah.
Like you want to be just trapped at your home all the time, a prisoner of your dog.
Right.
When you could make a few little changes and have a partnership with your dog,
Right.
you know?
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing that boggles my mind. There's a lot of things if your dog it bites like mine does. There are certain things that you have to do with your dog.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
But letting it rule your life to the point where you won't go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Or that you change your job to be a stay-at-home job so that you can stay at home all the time with your dog.
Right.
To me, that's absolutely insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just creates more inconsistent behaviors because it's not really what you want to do and it's not natural and normal. And so the dog is so confused at this weird emotional state that you're in that you can't be consistent. Everything about it is off. But if you make certain changes and accept those changes, the dog is in a much happier place and much better in knowing what the expectations are. And so, I think that being inconsistent, with certain things I think it's a healthy and it's a good thing. And I think, if you have a crazy schedule and a crazy life, things are going to be inconsistent. Sometimes you're in town, sometimes you're out of town. We have another client that, it's overnight trips. I have another one that the dog is part of the shared custody with the kids, and so the dog bounces back and forth. And so there's inconsistency in that. But once they get where they're going, there's consistency with the mom, and then there's consistency with when they're with dad. And so he's definitely more naughty and more aggressive when he's with mom, but we kind of accept that piece to it. So there's going to be inconsistencies, and we acknowledge that these behaviors are because of the inconsistencies, but there needs to be inconsistencies in life, but not in training and expectations. And so I think that inconsistencies are normal as long as we can acknowledge it and go back to being super consistent with our training and our expectation.
And you can enlist the help of your family and friends. I think that's
Right.
the key to keeping everything consistent for your dog when you know that you're having something weird in your life.
Right. Yep.
That if you try and enlist the help of your whole family so that things can stay kind of normal for the dog.
Yep.
Like, for example, if you normally walk your dog because at 3:00 or something after school, because that's what you do every day.
Right.
You walk your dog after school, but then your work schedule changes to night shift or something. But your kids are home after school, and they could go walk the dog and keep that, consistent. That could help you.
Yeah. And I think that we've been somewhat the consistency in a lot of dogs' life, that they expect to see us every day. We get them out, and we're that constant in their life, and that's what keeps them kind of in check for the owners, is that, oh, Michelle's coming. And the owners will talk about, oh, Michelle's coming, and the dogs get all excited because that is a solid routine of seeing you. Not necessarily the same time every day or, every Wednesday or whatever it is. It's just that we sometimes as trainers can be that consistent piece in their life, even if it's just once a week, that helps them continue to be good dogs, I guess is the best way to say it, because through training, you develop consistencies. And so when there is an inconsistency, well, Michelle's going to be here every Friday. And not the dogs have that thought process that, oh, we're looking forward to Friday. But when Friday comes, it's almost a relief for them to go, okay, I know exactly what we're going to do. I know exactly how things are going to go. Michelle puts my leash on the same way every day, and they appreciate that it's okay to even have trainers come in and keep your dog in check, or to create that consistency. If that's the consistency that you need to create, then let that be that, to keep them square and solid and moving forward, so that when you have inconsistencies, they still can find comfort in the consistencies. And I think that's, Michelle's dog's heading to the bathroom. And I don't know why it comes up all the time about them heading to the bathroom, but I think I was just so impressed that you didn't have to be there. It was just like, well, this is my comfort place. This is where I know that I'm safe and that I'm good. And so, that's important. That was really good that they found consistency in the inconsistencies of me coming and popping into the house that they hadn't experienced before. So, Rambo did some routines while he was here that was really funny about him, squishing out the gate, which he's the only dog that's ever escaped the yard. And he just hung out he's just creating comfort somewhere that he needed, because of all the inconsistencies that he's had over the last couple of weeks with your crazy schedule. So, if you allow them to find that comfort or that consistency when things are inconsistent, it's important to acknowledge that and have that, and so that you don't have behavioral problems.
Thank you for listening. If you want to know more about us and our services, please visit our website at www.wsk9co.com. And as always, we urge you to get out and train.